Geeks, nerds, gamers, and trolls, this is your MMOBomb.com first look at Switchblade, a free-to-play 5v5 vehicle combat MOBA, now available for free on Steam. This game is developed and published by Lucid Games, and it is what would happen if World of Tanks wasn't a complete snooze fest. Twisted Metal meets Overwatch meets, unfortunately, League of Legends, but we'll get into that in a minute. We're going to jump in, take a look, see what this game looks like, sounds like, plays like, help you decide if it's a game that you would like to download and try. As always, this is just a first look, not a full review, not an expert guide, and in full disclosure, Lucid Games did provide me a key code that unlocked all of the existing vehicles and all future upcoming vehicles. It's a pack that you can buy also as well through Steam. I believe it's the Legendary pack's going to go for $19.99. Kind of like Hi-Rez does that a lot with their gods and their characters and paladins. You can buy the pack, unlock all the existing ones and all the future ones yet to come. So every time a new car comes out, boom, it's yours. You ain't got to worry about unlocking it. Now, this game does have some aspects that I really, really like, but it's got a few things that I wasn't a huge fan of. So let's start with the positives. And to me, the biggest positive is the vehicles, the way that they move, the way that they work, and they're really the core of the game. As you'll notice as the gameplay goes along, this is essentially a MOBA with shooting cars. So we're pushing lanes, we've got minions, and we're taking down towers, trying to get to the main core of the enemy base and take it out. So at its heart, this game mode that we're playing is a MOBA, a lane-pushing MOBA. You should know that going in. This is the only game mode that's available right now, and right now there's only one map to play on. It is early access on Steam at the moment, but this is a console port, so hopefully there is more to come in the future. Before they get to that, though, they do still have some other things to work on. But let's talk about the vehicles and the way that they really make a difference in your gameplay experience. At the beginning of a match, when you're in the lobby, you're going to be able to select two different vehicles, and you're going to be able to swap between those two pretty much anytime you want. Whether you're out on the field or you're respawning, you can switch between which two vehicles you want to use. And there are long-range sniper-type vehicles, there are short-range fighters, there are fast, quick-moving scouts, there are tanks, and there are healers. That's right, vehicles that heal other vehicles. It's a lot like a MOBA, except it's cars and they shoot guns. So essentially your car is your class, and if you select a vehicle out in the lobby, nobody else on your team can take it. So it's a lot like a MOBA in that respect, where once you've selected something, you can't just have 5 of the same character on your team most of the time. So you've got 2 that you can choose from, so you can choose like a tank and a sniper, or a healer and a fighter, or whatever combination you want to swap between, which gives you some flexibility during the gameplay to sort of approach things in a different way. Now, as I said, it is a console port, so if you're comfortable with a controller and are used to using a controller, you're probably going to want to go that route when you're playing the game. Me, myself, a controller is not something I use all the time, so I was using mouse and keyboard, which made the driving a little awkward, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't something I couldn't get used to. But for me, as someone who's used to playing shooters, mouse and keyboard, it made the shooting a whole lot easier just to use my mouse for that instead of trying to use a controller. The vehicle movement feels great. The controls feel awesome when you're moving the vehicle. They're responsive, they're quick, they turn on a dime. You can keep your turret pointed in any direction and drive in any other direction. They're not tied to each other. It's really fun. I love driving the cars around. It could make for some really fast-paced, hectic combat, and I really enjoyed that aspect of Switchblade. Now, I didn't remember to get an exact count of how many different vehicles in the game, but there were at least 16, and I think there's been a couple released even since the Legendary pack was first introduced, like the Porcupine vehicle was a new one that was being touted. So I think it was maybe closer to 18 or 20 total vehicles right now. And each one is fairly unique. There is some crossover now. They're not all just like brand new things you've never seen before. And they are limited somewhat in the use of abilities because they are vehicles and not like people on legs that can do different crazy things. But there was a difference in some of the vehicles and some of their abilities. Now, some of them just sort of had different effects to them and kind of worked similarly, like surrounding yourself with a field that does damage. I've seen a couple of different vehicles that did that, and at the end of the day, they accomplished pretty much the same thing with that ability. They just looked a little different, but overall, they do make a great effort towards making each vehicle at least be somewhat unique and lets you experience different play styles depending on at least what class of vehicle you play, and then even within the class some differentiation between each vehicle. There are, of course, skins for the vehicles that you can purchase, and also you have a little avatar person character that drives this vehicle. And sometimes when you see my vehicle flip around, you can actually see my little person in the car driving it in some of these. I believe the one that's on screen right now, you can see through the little window and actually see through my little guy. You can go in and customize that guy out in the lobby. There's a little lobby when you're not queued up for a game that you just kind of walk around in, and you can see the different vehicles around the room, and you can go in and look at the shop and then customize your character. There's different outfits they can wear, and you can put logos and change the color of the outfit the guy's wearing. At the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal because, I mean, you're in the car. At the end of the day, the main part of this game is being in the vehicle, and that vehicle is your character for the most part. But you can go in and customize your little guy. Here you can see as I fall from the sky to respawn, I've got a color scheme going. I picked a suit and a little logo that I got on myself. There are emotes in the game, so for some folks, emotes can be a big thing. So there is customization in the game as far as your little person and the vehicles themselves. So what we're doing is trying to push lanes here and get our minions down the lane, because they have to go in and sort of kamikaze the towers at first, because the towers initially have blast shields that doesn't let us attack the towers directly. So we've got to take out the little gun turrets, get our minions by, get them to do damage to the tower initially, take down those blast shells, and then we can directly with our vehicles, as you've probably seen me do a few times now, do direct damage to the tower, take it out, take out a couple of towers, and you get to the main core. You got to take out its blast shield and then do damage to it directly. First one to take out the enemy's main core base is the winner. It is that simple. Games have been pretty fast, and this is probably where we're going to talk a little bit of negativity here. And that's because there's just not any players playing right now, and I'm not 100% sure why. I wasn't overly excited to jump into the game at first, but once I got into it, I was like, man, these vehicles actually feel really good. The shooting actually feels really good. The MOBA game mode we'll talk about in a minute. I don't think it was the best way to utilize the great vehicles that they've got going on here. But at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of players right now. So all the players you see, Mr. Flaw, Cryptic Mammoth, those are dudes I brought with me, and it put us in a group. We grouped up and we joined a game, and it filled out our team with bots. And I think in this particular video, the entire other team is bots. And I've played a few games solo where it was like me on one team and one other actual person on another team, and then it fills the game out with bots. Lots of bots to be found. Not a lot of players right now, unfortunately. Hopefully, as early access continues, the game gets more recognition, it gets more players. So that's the biggest downfall right now, is just there's not a lot of players at the moment. But there is actually a solid game here if they do show up. But like a lot of other games, as you play, you're going to level up, gain XP, and you'll be able to unlock your abilities. Your 3 abilities you get to choose from. You got your ultimate, then you got an E ability and an R ability, which are more basic abilities on shorter cooldowns. The ultimate abilities on the Q have very long cooldowns, so if you use one, it's going to be a long time before you get to use it again. But you're also going to collect currency. You can like do permanent upgrades like decrease cooldown or increase health of your vehicle for that match. And also there are consumables like a big healing balloon where you drop a big AoE heal, or decrease damage taken in the area for 30 seconds. So there's consumables you can purchase with the currency and upgrades for your vehicle within that match. Kind of like buying items in a MOBA. And here I'm flipping through the cash shop so you can see it. There's the vehicles, there's boosts, there's the currencies you can buy, the cash currencies to buy everything in the shop for cash. And then here's the bundles like the one I was given where you can unlock every vehicle forever, you can see. And you're also going to get some cash currency with that, excuse me. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on the cash shop. As you can see, I just flipped through it really fast because it is early access, and I've had so many cash shops change on me, but I will say there is no pay to win at all in that cash shop. There's no power boost. It's XP boost, things like that. Unlock characters just like pretty much every MOBA you've ever played. You can choose to unlock characters with cash or with in-game currency. You do earn a gold currency just by playing the game, and then of course you can purchase the cash shop currency if you want to with real-world money. So other than a very, very low player base at the moment, I didn't have a lot of problems with the game, but one thing that was an absolute headache was the in-game voice system. There's no way to opt out of it. It automatically puts you in voice chat anytime you join a party. if we had one party member come in, and I could go in, I would have to go in and make a couple of clicks through a social menu to manually mute just that person. And as soon as another person joined the party, if they were a couple minutes later getting into the party, it would unmute everybody in the voice chat. So we're out in the walk around lobby, and we've finally got everybody muted because we're using Discord to talk about the game and what we're doing and having fun and just cutting up and bullshitting around. And then we'd queue up for a game. And as soon as you get in character select, boom, the in-game voice chat is on again. So we're echoing, we're hearing, you know, Discord and the in-game voice chat. There's no way in the settings to opt out of it right now, at least none that we found. We scoured that thing up and down, could not opt out of the in-game voice system, which is a real pain. I have literally just instantly uninstalled games before because of that, but we wanted to keep playing this one because we really like the vehicles. So the in-game voice chat really needs some work. It really needs a button where you can just opt out of it completely, or if you mute somebody, quit unmuting them when you get into the game lobby. And you can't mute them in the game lobby. You have to listen to it in the game lobby. You have to get all the way into the actual game itself. You have to wait for that to load to be able to mute people again. So what you don't see at the beginning of all these matches is me opening the menu and going in and individually having to mute each person so that we can just keep using Discord. That way I can exclude us talking from the video. And most people would rather use something like Discord. I understand that, you know, games these days, there's a big push from the player base to have in-game voice chat. And if you need to utilize that, that's fantastic. That's a good way to be in voice chat with other people who aren't maybe necessarily in your Discord group, and it would be harder to find these random folks to talk with and communicate with while you're playing. But the ability to turn it off would be phenomenal. And quite frankly, necessary. The other big problem I had was the complete lack of the ability to change key bindings whatsoever. The abilities can't be rekey bound, the movement can't be rekey bound, nothing can be rekey bound. Everything is just going to be how it is, how it comes in the box. That's how you got to use it. And I'm not saying you can't get used to that, that's just not how I prefer it. Anybody who's been gaming on a mouse and keyboard for a while should know by now, and if you're not, ESDF is superior to WASD in every way, but you can't rekey bind to that. Also, I play with an MMO mouse 99% of the time when I play games, and I would prefer to be able to bind my abilities onto my MMO mouse instead of having to take a finger off of a movement key to activate them. So, like I said, it's not a deal breaker, and I know plenty of people play that way and use games how they come out of the box, but the inability to keybind is a sort of secondary function of it being a console port, but it's something if you're gonna succeed on PC, that's just one of those little things you really need to have. And again, just to emphasize, early access, hopefully on PC, some of those things get addressed because those are things that it really needs to succeed on PC. Maybe they don't, but as of right now, we don't know that for sure, that they're not going to be addressed. Hopefully they do, because for a PC port, you need those things to function in order to make PC players happy. Or at least to make me happy, I guess. And I guess the last thing I want to touch on is the fact that it's a MOBA. It's a straight up MOBA. It's a lane pusher with minions and towers and a core and the whole shebang. It plays like every MOBA that you've ever played. And part of my problem with that right now may be the fact that there were very few to no players in the game, and all the bots know how to do is push the lane. But look at all this open area in the middle of the map that is just ripe for fast-paced super vehicle combat. Like, all this awesome vehicle combat I thought I was going to get was almost non-existent because all the bots can do are push the lane, go straight down the lane. Every once in a while we could maybe put lots of effort into coaxing one of those bots out of the lane and fight with us in the middle. But for the most part, all they want to do is push lanes. So that made it super boring, the fact that the bots only stay in the lane. They only care about pushing the minions. If you're going to win against bots, you have to do the same thing. You just have to push the lane as hard and fast as possible and beat them to it, because they're going to hardcore push that lane. And there's none of that epic, fast-paced vehicle combat just kind of out in the field like I thought there was going to be. And hopefully, as more players come to the game, some of that changes. But for me, I don't think MOBA, lane pushing MOBA, was the best choice for game mode for this. At least not for your introductory one. I get that it's easy and it's something that a lot of people understand, but something more along the lines of King of the Hill with a moving objective, where like the first team to, let's just make up a number, 500 points wins the game, and little points spawn that you have to sit on and collect the points, and you'll sit on it for like, you know, 50 points or whatever. Then it moves to another location to really get a lot of movement in the game and get you moving around and utilizing different areas of the map, but really get vehicles moving and zooming, and just this melee, extreme melee in the middle of the map sometimes, or over to the side, instead of just up and down these lanes. You can see here the bots are pushing. I'm just over kind of in the middle just shooting, and they're really, until I get back over in the lane, not paying a ton of attention to me. So it's just not fun at the moment. Maybe a different game mode would have been a better option. Maybe bots who don't just push the lane, but at the end of the day, probably the biggest thing is more players would probably make the biggest difference. You would see metas come into play. You would see more freeform battles out in the middle. When somebody's trying to cut across to the other side, you can see people out there actually trying to cut them off and keep them from getting to the other side. So maybe that makes a difference, and maybe that makes my, I don't want to call it a complaint, but my lack of enthusiasm about a MOBA mode, maybe that would make that null with actual players. But overall, at the moment, I think this is really probably the game with the most unrealized potential that I've done a first look for MMOBomb for in a while. The vehicle combat is great. The movement, the controls are fantastic. I wish I could re-keybind some of the buttons, but the vehicles overall, they feel good to drive. They're fun to drive. The ones that should be fast are really fast, and the ones that are slower, more tanky type things, they're slower, but you feel beefy, and you really feel like you're going in and just taking a ton of damage. So they did a great job with that. It just needs more players at the moment, and maybe a different type of game mode. I have no idea if that's in the future, but I would like to see something that utilizes more movement, or like I said, maybe as more players come into the game, maybe the MOBA gets better. But there's so many MOBAs out there. There was an opportunity to do something a little different with it besides just a lane pusher. And just like any other MOBA out there, you'll quickly find a vehicle or two that you really prefer, and the ones you really like, just like you would find character classes or certain characters that you really love to play. The vehicles are a lot of the same way. There were a couple of vehicles where I've tried a few different ones, and you'll see me in the videos. I'm not swapping around probably as I should be doing to most optimize my potential here, but I was focusing on trying to learn a vehicle at a time during most of my gameplay. So I definitely found like my favorite tank and my favorite fighter, and maybe not the sniper vehicles, but I don't really play snipers in like shooters and stuff either. So those are just aren't for me, but I do like the big tanky beefy things in pretty much everything I play. So the tanks in this game are really fun for me. So, you know, if you like a certain play style, you'll find a vehicle that sort of suits your needs. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the MMOBomb.com first look at Switchblade free-to-play vehicle MOBA combat, now available on Steam. Check it out. Right now, what it really needs more than anything is players, and I think it deserves a chance. So hopefully you do too. Download it, give it a try. The more players that come in, the better it's going to be. Hopefully some different game modes getting introduced a little later on. But for right now, we need players for this game to really be able to succeed. So I'm looking forward to hopefully more folks jumping in. As always, tune in to MMOBomb.com for all the latest news and information on all the free-to-play games. Subscribe here on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. I have been the Noob Fridge, Troy Blackburn. You can follow me on Twitter at NoobFridge. I'm going to call this first look for Switchblade done. I'm looking forward to playing some more, hopefully with some actual folks. That would be fantastic. But for now, I'm out.